Welcome back. It is exactly 11:53 and super excited to speak to this amazing woman. Her name is Cynthia Stimple. She is the former South African Airways Group Treasurer and better known as a whistleblower. Cynthia Stimple, good morning. Welcome to the program. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show, and welcome to all the listeners this morning.
My pleasure entirely. I must say you're one super brave woman, because I understand after, and we're going to go into a lot of detail about your whistleblowing, but after the whistleblowing incident, that there were actual threats on your life?
For me, not directly. I was being watched. My home was being watched and I was followed, but not direct threats, because every time I received any calls with numbers I didn't know, I did not answer them. But some of my whistleblowing group that I'm in touch with have received direct threats, either to their person, to their homes, or to their children. So yes, those are still very relevant, those threats.
You talk about your whistleblowing group. Are there a whole lot of such people that are wanting to stamp out corruption in our beautiful country? How did you become a part of this group?
So after whistleblowing, my focus then was on my case. The first part of whistleblowing was trying to do an interdict and stop the transaction. So I worked with Weber then. And it took us roughly, from the 5th of December to the July to the 21st of July, we worked flat out, and we managed to interdict the transaction and stop it. By stopping it, we saved SA from wasting and spending 256 million, and in turn, we saved it for the country. The next in charge thereafter for misconduct and various other issues. And so my energy was all in trying to fight my case. It was only when I finished my whole case was when I sat back and thought, where to from here? Are there whistleblowers that felt the same way that I did? Did they suffer the same things? Did they have the same fear, the same doubts, the same, and I tried to reach out, but got no response. Especially, I first tried the SABC, the SABC 8 at the time, and couldn't connect with any of them. I think they were also in their own areas of issues and trouble. And it was only after speaking at Zondo and doing some public speaking that whistleblowers connected with me. And so we started a support group called, just at the moment, was just Whistleblower Support Group. And so it was easy to meet up and talk and find out, yes, did you also have those feelings of fear when you were going through the process? Did you have feelings of insecurity, of self-doubt? And did you feel like the world slapped you in the face and then just left you by the wayside? And it was very real. We all had that. And so transpiring from those discussions and meeting on a regular basis, we formed a small company called Citizens of Conscience now, which we would like to help and support whistleblowers.
All right, I'm going to come to that in a little while, and we're going to talk about the different types of whistleblowing that would happen. But how did your story start? I know you were the group treasurer at SAA. And I also know that at some point you went on a walking pilgrimage to France. And whilst you were on this pilgrimage, you got wind of the fact that something very sinister was happening behind the scenes. Before all of that, before your walking pilgrimage, were you aware at all that there are some shenanigans going on at SAA?
Thank you for the question. Yes, indeed. What transpired right from December was when we received a board resolution where we had already done the whole request for proposals and did the analysis and presented it to board. Board disagreed with all our recommendations and then came up with a new client called Free State Development Corporation and gave complete authority and execution rights to the acting chief executive and to the interim chief finance officer to just go ahead with this deal. And then I was called in to ratify it. So I refused to ratify it. So that was the first step when I thought, this is not right. Why would they request me to ratify when they know it didn't follow procurement process? And what we then did was send the RFP out to FTC so that we could analyze it together with the rest of the proposals. They did respond, and when we took it back to the acting chief finance officer, the CFO, she said, well, leave it with me. So it was parked with her, and nothing was happening. The next best thing is that a transaction advisor is suddenly put out and requested on an RFI perspective and then changed to a RFB, meaning a request for bidding. And again, our department was excluded from this process. And then I was called in again to sign the document approving that their scope changes from a transaction advisor to sourcing of funds. And so again, I refused to sign the documents, and I was then going on this pilgrimage, you see. So I took it back to my deputy and I said, please do not sign this while I'm away. When I come back, we will deal with it. But while I was on this walk in France, I received a WhatsApp message from my colleague saying he was forced to sign. He was told that he doesn't make the decisions, he needs to sign it, and so he signed it. And it was on that basis, when I received this, I realized they are pushing ahead with something that I already challenged directly to the CFO, saying there's no way we should be signing this. We should rather start from scratch, resend out the RFP to everyone, open the bid, and we can then take responses from there, which then obviously, she didn't take my guidance and advice at the time and rather forced my deputy to sign this document. And it was on that basis, when I saw this, I realized this is going to go ahead while I'm sitting in France. I need to do something. And that's when I sent a whistleblowing WhatsApp message directly to National Treasury, advising them of the issues that had just transpired.
Was that the only incident that you blew the whistle on? Prior to that, were you aware that things were not quite right at SAA? And now, as you out of that area and you hear about government now probably wanting to bail SAA out after it's been looted by greedy money grabbers, how do you feel about all of that? And I know these are multiple questions I'm throwing at you. Also, you could have kept quiet and brown-nosed your way right to the top and not been a troublemaker, so to speak. And yet you went ahead, put your life on the line, your job at risk. Talk to us about all of those issues I've just raised now.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So starting from the issue of were there other shenanigans going on at SAA? Yes, there was. In my area, which is Treasury at the time of working with SAA, we were focused mainly on Treasury functions, which meant cash management, managing the daily cash. So we were so close to knowing whether SAA did not have enough funds, and we would borrow on the back of that through government guarantees, and that was our main focus. We did not get involved with anything happening, for instance, in the technical, so SAA technical division or the SAA air chefs division or the commercial. So we don't get involved with that. The time you get to know about issues when it's already in the media, or there's corridor talk and gossip in the organization. So the first time I got to know about other shenanigans, firstly, was exactly also in December. That same December when I received this board resolution, and I was so uncomfortable with it that I even took it to the chief internal audit, and I said to him, have a look at this. Is it not an irregular board resolution? And he said, yes, it is. And it was left up to me to do something about it because he did not give me guidance or advice. So that was the first part. The second part was that at the same time, SA was in a position to purchase new aircraft from an existing transaction that had already taken place with Airbus. And at the time was 10 aircraft, and we were going to change it to 5 because of our financial situation at the time. And because we also put down deposits, it's called pre-delivery payments, and it's like a deposit you would put down for your car if you're going to purchase a car or a home, etc. So very similarly, and we had already had money with Airbus of roughly 1.5 billion rand sitting there for the new aircraft. And because of our situation, the discussion and negotiation between the fleet department and the executives in charge of fleet, so I was excluded from that, obviously, because it's not my area, together with the client, who was Airbus, negotiated that SA would take 5 aircraft instead rather than 10, and then the money that they put down as deposits for the additional 5 they would get back, and that would improve our cash position. So we would get involved from the PDP perspective, the pre-delivery payments, because we knew that would come back into our cash. And when this deal was going to be scuppered by the then Dudu Myeni, whereby she tried to bring in an African leasing company in the middle of this, so it meant that we then lose those PDP payments as cash flow into the organization, and this created a whole furore. In the end, National Treasury insisted that that the original deal, which was approved by both board and National Treasury, go ahead. So when I got wind of that, yes, I did report it to our pilots at the time, saying, are you aware that this is happening? Because the pilots also played a role in the decision-making of the deal. And obviously decisions were taken behind, but it was stopped in time, and that was great. And then the other shenanigans that happened, I only found out much later when it was in the media, and specifically during the Zondo Commission testimonies, because we weren't privy to that information. So your next question was like, why didn't others speak out? Why was it only me? I cannot answer that question for you. What I do know is I always said that if I see anything wrong within my area, I would speak out, and I often did, even with my staff. If my staff were taking undue long hours, I would say to them, this is actually not on, because you signed an agreement with SAA. I'm only your manager, so I'm just managing the time here. So be honest with me. If you need time, ask me and I will give it to you. But don't just stay away with no excuses and, take a 2-hour, 3-hour lunch break versus a 1-hour lunch break, which we all know. And so on that basis, I always conversed with my team that if you need time off to fetch your children from school, whatever it is, as long as I know, we can manage it effectively. So they all know I always spoke up. If there was any issues happening, I would immediately raise it. I wouldn't let it go by or let it just sit there. Coming to the issue, yes. How come I spoke?
Carry on.
Yeah, so the issues with mine, it wasn't just my issue, because you work as a team when you're sourcing funds. So it was my deputy, Michael Klein. It was also the procurement head manager. And I went to speak to both of them. I said to them, we all know that there's something fundamentally wrong in this whole process. Can we stand together? And I said to them, I'm prepared to write the memo together with all of them to sign, to go to board and say, this is wrong. This process, you are going against our governance process, and we need to ensure that we don't continue this pathway. They both told me they need their jobs, and then I said, well, then there's no way I can continue working like this. I have to tell them upfront that we're doing the wrong thing, and I do not want to be part of doing anything wrong. Yes.
How has your life changed since having left SAA? And also, did you know Dudu Myeni pretty well? Did you have lots of contact with her? And how comfortable or daunting did you find testifying at the Zondo Commission?
Okay, so let's go with Ms. Dudu. Mayeni is that, now I didn't know her that well, because as board members, you don't see them on a regular basis. You meet them either when it's board meetings and perhaps on ad hoc meetings. So I did meet with her. The first time I met with her was when we had to go and present at Parliament, and she met us at the airport. So that was my very first meeting. Obviously, I've seen her. You can see in the distance people that pass, so you get to see board members, but haven't physically met. So then I was first introduced to her, and at the time I was group treasurer. When I was the risk manager, I obviously didn't meet her. And the second time was in another meeting where she called all the members together who attend the meetings with National Treasury, and then I've just seen her in one or two board meetings. So that was it. How did I perceive her? At the time, Miss Mayeni comes across very elegant. She's dressed well, she speaks well, has a husky voice, not hard, demanding, etc. But at the same time, I could almost feel and sense veiled threats through her words, because in the one meeting, she actually instructed us not to attend any more National Treasury meetings, which we were attending on a weekly basis, because National Treasury had instructed us there's a crisis at SAA, and this is a crisis management situation, so they would like to follow up on certain issues on a weekly basis. And because I was in the funding and cash management side, we met weekly. The others, when it came to the route and the revenue, how much revenue were we making, the sale of our tickets, they also met on a weekly with us, as well as the strategy department. And then we were called in and told, no, this is not, this meeting is against corporate governance. We should only meet on a monthly basis, because when we reported to Department of Public Enterprises, we only met monthly. But by that time, we weren't in the same crisis situation. So it was things like that, where she was sort of implying we were going against corporate governance, and we didn't. You know, we were doing what has been instructed by our direct shareholder. So it was that type of atmosphere. Then she also worked a lot behind the scenes, because the directive we got was always through the CFO, which I felt she made the decisions behind that and pushed the CFO. So there was that sort of focus rather behind the scenes. And if you need more clarifying questions, please explain that.
Okay, we are running out of time, and I'd love to have you on the show again sometime soon. But the issue around the Zondo Commission, were you intimidated at all? Were you just following your heart and said, I'm going in and I'm going to not be rattled. I'm going to tell the truth as it actually happened?
Yes, and at Zondo, that was exactly it. I was totally calm. I was totally prepared. And this gave me the opportunity to voice my story and tell the truth. So with Zondo, I felt it was an excellent forum for me. I could speak and I could be questioned by the lead evidence leader as well as DCJ Zondo, and just speak the truth and answer the questions as is. I did not for 1 minute feel intimidated. I did not for 1 minute feel scared at all. And I was just happy to be able to have that forum to speak out.
Do you feel you've been heard? Do you feel that, the powers that be will then eventually play out and the right results and the right decisions will eventually be made? Are you confident that the monies stolen or misappropriated will be able to be recuperated? And do you still have hope for South African Airways?
Thanks, Julie. Look, for one thing, right now, we all know that since Zondo's commission started, the State Capture Commission has started, not anyone has truly been convicted or arrested. But I'm taking comfort, though, from what I've seen with the Zondo Commission, that with all the testimonies, it gives an opportunity for the entire South African population to see what has happened throughout the whole State Capture Commission, and it makes us wiser to what's going on in our various spheres of where we work, and just knowing the bigger scheme of things that have happened in our country. So I take comfort with that, and I think it was a good forum that information is coming out in that way. Will the monies be recouped? I can't say. What I'm praying and hoping for is that the National Prosecuting authorities really acts on it. I believe from reading in the media space, they don't have enough capacity, but I hope that will be built. And they can take volunteers like me, I'll put my hand up, just to help so that they can start prosecuting. Because if we don't, we're going to keep this precedent set that it's okay for everyone to continue the corruption. And I agree with you, this is our country, and we need to take it back as citizens. We need to all start becoming aware of what's happening in our country, and we all have the right to dignity. We all have the right to speak out. It's in our constitution to speak from a belief perspective, from our conscience perspective, and we all have the right to proper housing and schooling. And with all the corruption that is being taken away from us. So my recommendation is that our citizens need to listen, sit up and listen, and slowly take our country back. Thank you.
Finally, what is your life been like post this whole SAA saga? And do you kind of, are you viewed as an impimpi? And has it, impacted, challenged you in future job prospects?
So from a whistleblowing perspective, as an impimpi, I think that's normally like a tattletale or snitch, behind. I think mine was different. So I think the people at the top, probably the ones who accused me and got me suspended, would have obviously not wanted me to speak up because it implicated them directly. But if you look at the rest of the organization of SAA, or maybe even the bigger South Africa, no, they see me as a hero, as someone who has taken the courage to step up and speak out. And so for me, that gives me comfort. Not everyone perceives whistleblowers in that way. And it is actually hard for whistleblowers. You don't wake up and make that decision. It's a decision that you take over time. So mine was a long process before. I had to first consult with my family. I consulted with my husband, my children, my brothers, my sisters. I even spoke to our priest. I spoke to various friends and to my own staff to tell them no one should be instructing you to do the wrong thing. And if they do so, you must be able to speak up. So it was all that before you finally blow the whistle. It's never just a decision you make overnight. The second question you asked me regarding job prospects, that's very hard, Julie. Initially, I thought I would get a job, and I thought I'd get it quickly. I have an MBA, I've got risk management, I've got banking experience and treasury experience. I sent my CV out, no one has responded. And the more I sent it out, you don't even get acknowledged, you just get nothing.
Oh, shame. I'm so sorry for you.
But no, I'm in a comfortable place now, so don't worry. I decided to reinvent myself and decide, okay, you have skills, what do you do with them? And you've got a second chance at life now. How would you take your life forward? And I always loved yoga. I did yoga, which I feel yoga played a huge part in my strength in getting forward and not going into depression or needing psychiatric help. And so it was yoga and meditation. It was my family support behind me that kept me strong. And my third was my faith in God, that I knew He carried me and helped me along. So those were my three pillars that I leaned on during the time. And decided then I will take yoga as a teaching to instruct. And I now instruct yoga to adults as well as to children. The second thing is I went to study further to become a certified director so that I can work in boards and make them help them become ethical boards and not allow to go against corporate governance or make bad decisions, which results in the reputation and the demise of that organization. And then the third thing was to volunteer my time. So I volunteer in lots of places. I volunteer teaching yoga. I volunteer in various nonprofit organizations like Amnesty International, fighting for human rights. I volunteer in another organization fighting for keeping the Constitution that we have, our beloved Constitution, whole and complete without people trying to contravene it. So yes, so I'm just using all that time, and then I volunteer in a church group where I taught obviously our faith, but at the same time I work on a radio, where I do Renew Africa, just renewing your faith. So yes.
Okay, great. That's where we leave it. You are my hero, by the way. We will call on you sometime soon. I'd like to explore your new organization. What's it? Citizens for Conscience. What's it called?
Citizens of Conscience Foundation.
Oh, Citizens. Yes. All right. We'll call you again sometime soon to talk some more. And thank you so much. Let's hope that people follow your example. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And bye-bye.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to the listeners.
Okay, there you have it. An amazing woman talking about having blown the whistle on corrupt practices at South African Airways. Still to come on the show, we'll be talking to Bronwyn Williams from Flux Trends, and thereafter Thakira Mohammed, an author of a book called Mercy.